Guys, I'm not even kidding when I say this. Gal Gadot just ended Rachel Zegler's career with 7 words. And it happened right in front of Disney executives. Like, this leaked footage dropped yesterday and it's absolutely insane. And trust me, after you see this, you'll understand why even Rachel's agents are probably not returning her calls right now. The actress who was supposed to be Disney's next Golden Girl just got checkmated by the evil queen. And honestly, it was brutal to watch. What's up, everyone? So if you've been following the Snow White disaster like I have, you know this whole thing has been a train wreck. But this leaked interview footage, this changes absolutely everything about Hollywood politics. We're not talking about some celebrity drama anymore. We're talking about career assassination disguised as professionalism. I've got insider sources, leaked Disney emails, and some seriously disturbing details about what really went down behind the scenes. And let me tell you, it's way more calculated than anyone imagined. So buckle up, because this is going to expose how the industry really works. See, when Gal Gadot showed up for the press tours, you could instantly see the difference. While Rachel was out there throwing shade at Prince Charming, calling the original outdated, and acting like she'd been forced to star in this against her will, Gal played it cool. She smiled, praised the legacy of the story, and gave these thoughtful little answers that felt classy. It was like watching two people in completely different movies.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937.
The real moment that had people talking came during one of her interviews when she was asked about Rachel's whole "Snow White doesn't need a man" rant. Instead of co-signing or defending it, Gal just pivoted. She kept saying how magical the original was, how much respect she had for the classic, and how she loved playing the evil queen because of that legacy. And then she slipped in this line about how she even enjoyed working with Rachel. That's when fans started reading between the lines.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
It started with the Prince Charming comments. In one interview, Rachel flat out called him a stalker. She joked about how weird it was that Snow White falls in love with a guy she barely knows. Now, is she wrong? No, but when your entire movie is a Disney fairy tale remake, maybe don't roast the core romance before the trailer even drops. And that wasn't even the worst part.
You know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
The big one came next. Rachel said the 1937 original was incredibly outdated, and that Snow White wouldn't be saved by the prince this time around. Instead, she insisted that her version would be about leadership and independence. Now that sounds empowering on paper, but the delivery was the problem. Rachel didn't sound inspired, she sounded annoyed, like she was over the film before it even premiered. And fans noticed. Clip after clip went viral on TikTok, not because people were excited, but because they couldn't believe how ungrateful she sounded. One especially damaging moment was when Rachel admitted she didn't even like the original story growing up. She basically said she found it boring and weird. Imagine being the face of a $200 million remake and telling the audience you don't even care for the source material. And here's the kicker. All of these interviews were supposed to hype the film. They weren't random interviews, they were the press run for the film. Instead, they became viral PR disasters. The audience hadn't even seen the film yet, but thanks to Rachel, they already had their minds made up.
Well, the reviews are in, and it's a film that has been widely panned. Even the most progressive publications really had nothing nice to say about it. It seems nothing will save this disaster.
And just when people thought this couldn't get any worse for Disney, the box office numbers came in. And that's where the story completely blew up. Snow White had a production budget pushing close to $200 million once you factored in reshoots, marketing, and Disney's usual glossy post-production. That means it needed a huge global turnout just to break even. Instead, it opened soft and kept sinking.
The box office figures aren't great either. It earned $87 million on its global debut against the estimated $250 million.
For comparison, think about how other Disney live-action remakes performed. Aladdin cleared over $1 billion worldwide. Cinderella pulled in a solid $500 million. Even The Jungle Book did monster numbers. Snow White, which is the supposed jewel of the Disney princess space, couldn't even sniff those results. It was basically dead on arrival. Critics didn't help either. Reviews dragged the film for looking soulless and confused about what it wanted to be. Some praised Gal Gadot for clearly having fun as the evil queen. But Rachel, she got called flat, awkward, and miscast. That's a nightmare scenario for Disney, because when your lead gets roasted, the movie can't recover. The audience reactions were even worse. People walked out saying they'd rather rewatch the original cartoon. Yeah, the same original that Rachel basically said was shit. Families skipped it entirely, with many openly admitting they didn't want to support Rachel after the way she trashed the film.
It's one thing when critics come at you, but it's a whole other issue when casual Disney fans decide they'd rather stay home and watch Encanto for the 12th time. What made it sting even more was the timing. Disney had already been on shaky ground with their live-action strategy, which was already facing fatigue from too many remakes. So Snow White was supposed to be a safe bet, a return to the magic of their most iconic princess. Instead, it became the perfect example of how bad PR, messy press tours, and weak creative choices can sink even the biggest brand. And here's the wildest part. Snow White flopped, Rachel Zegler took the full brunt of the backlash, but Gal Gadot walked out of that mess like she'd just done a Dior campaign. It somehow even made her more likable than before. The thing is, Gal has been in the industry long enough to know the game. She's done Wonder Woman, she's carried major franchises, and she knows how to handle a press tour without handing Twitter its next meme. While Rachel was dragging the movie mid-interview, Gal stuck to the script. She praised the original, called it magical. She hyped the costumes and set design, and she always stayed in character as this elegant evil queen figure. Basically, she played both roles perfectly, the villain on screen and the professional star off screen. And boy, fans picked up on it fast. Memes crowned her the true star of the movie, which is hilarious when you think about it because Snow White isn't supposed to be about the evil queen. It's literally titled Snow White. Yet somehow, Gal stole the spotlight without even trying. For Disney, this was both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, Gal's performance was the one thing critics and fans could agree on. On the other hand, it highlighted how badly the casting of Rachel had backfired. The evil queen shouldn't outshine Snow White, but here we are. The moment the press clips started circulating, the internet did what it always does best. It turned everything into a meme war. And honestly, Rachel Zegler was not ready for the kind of online roasting she walked into.
A big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
It's not that weird. It's really not. So I'm not one of those people who is threatened by feminism or, female empowerment. I'm not.
We're here to celebrate our wonderful, magical Snow White film.
TikTok edits blew up, showing her saying things like, "The prince was a stalker," or "The original was outdated." Cut next to Gal Gadot, smiling like she was at a Vogue cover shoot. Gal got the elegant, put-together treatment, while Rachel was framed as the grumpy intern who didn't even want to be there. It sounds brutal, but the internet wasn't wrong. The clips, side by side, told the whole story. Then came the fan edits that took it even further. People started cropping Rachel out of promotional posters entirely, leaving Gal front and center as if the movie was hers alone. Someone even photoshopped the title card to say Evil Queen instead of Snow White, and it went insanely viral. The reaction wasn't just jokes either. There was a real divide in how fans treated Disney leads. Hailey Bailey faced racism when she was cast as Ariel in The Little Mermaid, but she handled press tours with grace and positivity, and fans rallied behind her. Rachel, on the other hand, had no external hate storm until she started creating one herself. She went from Golden Globe winner to public enemy of the Disney fandom in record time. The internet roasting was one thing, but the real damage came afterward. Rachel Zegler went from Hollywood's rising star to someone studios were suddenly side-eyeing. And that's wild because not long before Snow White, she was the breakout lead of West Side Story. She literally won a Golden Globe for that role, and people thought she was about to become the next big Disney darling. But then came the Snow White press disaster, and the narrative flipped. Instead of being seen as the fresh, young star with huge potential, she started being labeled as difficult and ungrateful. And in Hollywood, those words are poison. Studios don't want to invest hundreds of millions into a franchise if the lead is going to trash it in interviews. It's not just bad PR, it's bad business. And while Rachel still has talent, no one's denying she can sing and act. It's about more than talent at this level. Hollywood rewards professionalism, or at least the appearance of it. Confidence is great, but when it tanks a $200 million movie, people stop clapping. At the end of the day, Snow White was supposed to be Rachel Zegler's crowning moment. Instead, it turned into the role that might haunt her for years. She went in as Disney's next big star, but came out as the face of one of their biggest flops. Gal Gadot, on the other hand, played it like a true queen. She gave the press exactly what they wanted. She slipped in that perfectly polite, "I even enjoyed working with her" check, and she walked away with her reputation glowing. Fans crowned her the real star of the movie, even though she was supposed to be the villain. That's the plot twist Disney never saw coming.